So good morning, everybody. For those of you that I have not met, I am Debbie Mollahan. I'm the CEO of the Tigard Chamber, and I am joined this morning by Jessica Love, who is Community and Member Engagement, and Catherine Wiley, who is our Membership Director. And the man of the hour here is Lloyd Purdy, who is the Economic Development Manager with the City of Tigard. And he is going to talk to us this morning about Tigard CARES. We've actually consolidated a list of about 17 questions in advance that came to us. But first, Lloyd is going to take us through a presentation that he actually gave to City Council as part of the launch of Tigard CARES. So Catherine is going to screen share that, and Lloyd is going to talk us through that at this point.
Hi, everyone. Debbie and Chamber, thank you. Chamber members, thank you for inviting me to join you and talk to you about this program called Tigard CARES. Happy to be here. Happy to give you an overview of what we're talking about, but not that screen. And
great.
And I'm happy to answer questions when we're done. On March 20th, Mayor Snyder asked the economic development team to create a business assistance program that would be impactful and supportive of businesses in Tigard. He encouraged us to be bold. That's why you can go to the first slide in the screen where it says, the bolder the better. That was exactly what the mayor said to us. We took that to heart and we developed a program with 5 goals in mind. You can back up 2 slides, in fact, if you want to.
I'll make it.
The idea for the program was to complement and not duplicate state and federal programs. Businesses in the city that are suffering from challenges from the health crisis that's turning into an economic crisis have a lot of resources at the Fed, and that should really be a first priority for most firms. We also wanted to focus on equity and making sure we are supporting with our a very limited amount of money, the businesses in the community that are the most vulnerable, those that don't have access to federal support or don't have access to commercial banks, or that traditionally and chronically have been ignored by those partners. We also realized very quickly that we could add in some professional guidance, some professional advising, and some professional financial decision-making from partners beyond just city staff and the chamber. I should mention that 2 times in the week we spent finalizing this concept, or the week and a half, I consulted with Debbie on the ideas, on the approach, on the direction we were heading. We didn't create this program out of thin air. We did it with input from businesses, from the chamber, from a range of partners, from colleagues I had seen in other cities rolling out programs. And we also added the financial decision-making experience of 2 CDFI partners. CDFIs are Community Development Financial Institutions. I'll mention them again later. We also wanted to make this about more than just money. The program we've rolled out ends up connecting businesses that are participating, again, those businesses that are the most vulnerable and the most lacking in resources to recover. It connects them to business advising, credit building, loans that help stand up a company going into the future so that they can eventually access traditional commercial products. We also put a priority on a fast and smart delivery system. So the result of that was this idea called Tigard CARES. Within 10 days, we rolled out this unique program, and I'll admit it's now a program that other cities and entities have been asking. I'm sorry, I'm watching the screen, but don't worry about the technical difficulty. It's a program that's being modeled all over the region. The county now wants to follow the model for this program. I have had 5 other cities call me and say, how did you do this? But let me tell you a little more about what we did. We know that economic distress extends throughout the entire community. You're feeling it, we're feeling it. Every business in Tigard will be impacted by the health crisis that has become an economic crisis. Unfortunately, the city's resources are very limited. We had to deal with those hard realities. And so we came up with this thoughtful and intentional program. Again, the idea was to move into stabilization and community support for the firms that needed it most. Those were the firms with limited access to commercial banks, federal support. We realized the best way to do this was to leverage our money and our relationships. So we started with the idea of a $200,000 fund. And if we followed the model of some other cities, in fact, almost every other city that moved initially on this, they were handing out grants like $2,000 on a first come, first served basis. So it's pretty simple math. If you have $200,000 and you can hand out small grants of $2,000, you can have 100 firms. We know the need here is well more than that. So I dug deeper and we found another $100,000. The funding combined is from the business license fund that you and other businesses pay into, and extra reserves from the city's emergency fund. We took that $300,000, and by working with our CDFI partners, we were able to leverage it into almost $1 million in support. And that comes in the form of, don't move the slide yet, but we'll talk about this more. That comes in the form of small grants, micro loans, and I would call them bridge loans. Key to this absolutely was our partnership with 2 CDFI partners, again, community development financial institutions. They're like commercial banks. In fact, they are, but they work at a more local level. So we partnered with MISO, Micro Enterprise Solutions of Oregon, and Craft 3. They're able to use federal funding, private funding, foundation funding, and now some City of Tigard funding to provide the banking services, small grants, micro loans, credit building, business counseling and advising. So they're able to help businesses move beyond a crisis and into stability. So this is a good slide to pause. Go back one slide, I think, maybe. I mentioned that we have up to $1 million in funding, and that takes 3 forms. We have small grants, which that program was quickly, I'm speaking in the past tense now, was quickly oversubscribed. There's more people asking for support in the form of $1,500 in grants than we have funding for. We committed about $150,000 into that. And again, pretty easy math. That means we're able to make about 100 awards of small grants. We need to be certain that that money was going to the businesses that would help the most. Microloans, those are for loans as low as $500. That's something a traditional bank wouldn't even bother with, but for some businesses that makes the difference, as you know, in covering cost, rent for a month, for instance, or a payroll for a week or two. So those 2 programs, those 2 tools, those financial tools, are programs that MISO, Micro Enterprise Solutions of Oregon, they're really good at. And they're delivering those to businesses for us with the money we've invested with them. They're able to take the about $50,000 that we've invested in a loan loss reserve, and they can match that 6 to 1 and turn that into, I think my math is right, about almost $300,000 in microloans to give out, not just give, but to work with businesses on who need that very small loan. The beauty of that also is it helps a firm develop the credit they need to move into the traditional banking system. MISO does this day in and day out. That's why we knew they were the right partner. The low interest loans and the bridge loans, those are being offered through Craft 3. They are also a CDFI. They can offer loans that range from $10,000 to $50,000. Their online application went live Monday, and I have a meeting with them this afternoon because they are supposed to be making individual calls to every business that's requested or asked us for or expressed an interest in a loan of $10,000 to $50,000. And for some businesses, this will be a cash flow issue where they can take this loan, use it, cover immediate needs, and then maybe if they do qualify for federal support, they can get that and pay off this loan, because Craft 3 won't start requiring interest payments on this loan until after 3 months. So Craft 3 was able to take about $100,000 of the city taxpayer dollar and leverage that 5 to 1. Basically, they've opened up a loan fund for Tigard businesses of almost $500,000. Again, some simple math. For loans ranging from $10,000 to $50,000, we'll be able to help anywhere from 10 to 50 firms, depending on the size of those loans, somewhere in that range. Number of dollars we have to work with is so constrained and so limited. It really is those federal programs that are going to be able to help the majority of firms in Tigard. Wrapping up the slides here, this is the last one. I'll give you a little more background, and then we'll have time for questions. Within the first 24 hours, that was last week, Wednesday, Thursday, the days are running together for me. We've been creating this program, rolling it out, standing up as quickly as we can. It's been some pretty intense and long days, but within the first 24 hours, it's for me, and I know it is for all of you too, keeping your businesses going as best you can and trying to find out how to pay bills when sales are down. We did receive 200 applications in the first 24 hours. Now, if you've been tracking the numbers I've mentioned, best case scenario, even with almost $1 million in support combined between some small grants to the most vulnerable firms and some larger bridge loans, even then, I know we can only help 150 firms. As of yesterday, the number increased to 360 requests for assistance. As you now know, we are absolutely oversubscribed. We cannot help everybody that's made a request for assistance. Again, this is why the federal programs are so important. Applications have ranged from restaurants and retailers to fitness studios and healthcare providers, everybody who's on the front lines, and even those that are secondarily impacted by this, what I'm calling now an economic crisis, though we know it's a health crisis as well. MISO, Micro Enterprise Solutions of Oregon, reviewed 150 applications. I guess more accurately, I can say that we routed 150 firms that expressed a request for a small grant to a MISO application. Of those 150 or so, plus or minus, more coming every day, and we've kept a window open, even though we're out of money. We've started a wait list. MISO has some criteria for small businesses. They're the most vulnerable, the most fragile. They think about 100 of those are eligible, and as of yesterday, they have begun meeting with those businesses, and we expect those small grants of $1,500. We expect those checks to be paid end of this week and early next week. There are over 150 firms that we have routed to Craft 3 because those firms expressed interest in those bridge loans of $10,000 to $50,000. I've been told by Craft 3, my contact there, that they've started making calls and individual follow-ups. I'm doing my best to also we have a team now making calls and sending out emails. So as you can tell, we're rolling this program out as fast as we can, but not on a first come, first served basis, and not on a simple handy cash, here's some money, now go away. We've tried to make this a program that adds value, not just in the near term to businesses in a crisis, but by connecting businesses to these financial partners. So 3 different programs. Funding is going out as quickly as we can get it out the door. We've already made a disbursement to MISO, so they have the funds they need. Craft 3 was willing to start this program without even going through our long process at the city of making funds. So the program is up and running. I'm looking at my notes to see if there's anything else I need to tell you. Again, the mayor challenged us to make a bold, impactful program. We've done something that actually no other city in the region has done, and now we're being copied. And I've been asked every day. I get an inquiry from another city saying, "How did you leverage your money? How did you do this so smartly? How are you doing something better than just a taxpayer cash handout?" That I've editorialized with you all here a little bit. I gave you a little more background than the council presentation. I think there's some questions. Happy to, I guess Catherine's going to read those off. I think, yes, nod your head, and I'll answer them as best I can. And then I think there'll be room for questions that come in on the chat if we still have time.
Debbie, you want to kick it off?
Sure, I will kick it off. I think that you already answered this question, Lloyd, but I'm going to reword it just to make sure everybody heard it.
Yep.
I know one of the concerns we heard was that, well, Beaverton launched something really quickly and Hillsborough launched something really quickly, and it seemed to take the City of Tigard longer. And my understanding is the reason it took longer was because you were much more deliberate about what it was you were trying to do, and you were trying to take a really small pot of money of about $200,000 to $300,000 and turn that into a larger pot so that more businesses could be supported. So do you have anything else to add to that kind of recap, or would you say that more or less explains the why?
Yep, that absolutely explains it. We took a matter of days, really, just a matter of a couple days more to stand up the program. And again, this program has a limited amount of small grants. Actually, for a city our size, we're punching above our weight. We're per capita giving out more small grants than they are, given their large size. They have staffs of 3 and 5, 4, 5 economic development staffers. We have 1.5 on this project. They were willing to do first come, first serve, which made it feel fast, but isn't, in my opinion, a really good approach. They were willing and maybe had staff on hand to review applications and decide who would be a good recipient of funding. And I feel like our CDFI partners that we brought in are better prepared to make those recommendations on who should receive funding. So yeah, we took a couple more days. The other benefit is we took an initial idea of 200,000, added 50% to that to make it from 200, added 100 to 300,000, and then basically, because of the beauty of leverage and working with the CDFI partners, we were able to turn that into almost $1 million of support. Yes, most of that takes the form of loans. That's the only way in our capitalist society to make money where there isn't is to leverage it like that. So yep.
Terrific. Thank you. Catherine?
Yes. Lloyd, and you may have covered these, but I just want to make sure we really hear about it. Where are these funds coming from?
Right. I think you can think about the funding in, let's try 3 different tranches. My recollection is about $200,000 is coming out of the revenue generated from the business license fund. And as many of you know, most of that money goes to cover our commercial crimes unit, the officers at the city who do a really good job of serving businesses. There's a whole team that's funded in good part by business license revenue. A little bit of that, they're not going anywhere. They're still made whole, but there's a little bit of that funding that doesn't go to that program. It goes into the general fund of the city. So that money was directed and became the first $200,000 we had to work with. Council last Tuesday, so a week ago, Council authorized a dip into the city's emergency funds, and we pulled another 100,000 out of that. That made the 300,000. That allowed me then to go to our CDFI partners and basically triple that number. They are tapping into a combination of SBA funds that they are earmarked, bank funds from the CRA arms, the Community Reinvestment Act. Most banks have a CRA program where they invest in communities. Those CDFI partners are using funding from the Oregon Community Foundation. They have a pool. They each have a pool of funding they can go to. And the beauty of this is we were able to match our funding with that pool that they have to come up with more money than any of us would have on our own. I'm ready for the next question.
So one of the other questions we had was, so you put out this big broadcast to the Tigard business community. We're launching this program, come explore it, come apply. And we got some inquiries about how did you come up with that list for your outreach? And I know that one of the things the chamber did is we turned it around and recommunicated it to our chamber businesses when we got the green light from you. But how did you communicate kind of with the rest of the Tigard business community? How did you come up with that list?
Yep, I count on good partners all the time, like Debbie and the team at the chamber, Catherine and Jessica, to spread the word when we have something good and even when we have challenging things to talk about. So thank you for spreading the word. We made sure we got a press release in the local paper. That wasn't easy to do, seeing how many journalists have been laid off. But we got a story in the Tigard Times. And we also have a Tigard business license registration, which most of you businesses know about. And on that, we ask for your business license. So if you filled out that form, if you gave us an accurate business license, every year you have a chance to do that. And if it was accurate, you got a notice from us about this program. Unfortunately, many businesses don't provide an email, and sometimes they don't even give us an accurate one. So our best tool on this program was the Tigard business license registration, where we could access emails. For anybody that we didn't have an email for, we tried to go online and find an email. And so we've been constantly updating and tending and guarding to that list, but that was somewhat hard work actually to do that. Could have been avoided if firms that are participating provide current and accurate email contacts to the city.
And how many business licenses are there in the city? Is it like 2,000 or 3,000?
We have numbers for over 3,000 firms. When I counted 3 weeks ago, we have about 800 in the category of restaurant, retail, personal services, those that are on the very front line affected by state mandated closures. So you can see my despair when I say, I know we could only help 150, maybe a couple more businesses. I know right out the gate, there were 800 firms directly affected at the very front end of this program, not to mention everybody else that's subsequently feeling impacts. So of those 3,000 firms, we have accurate emails. We have a business license list for over 2,000 of them, and it's changing every month. Some businesses are added to the list because they're new, and sometimes businesses drop off the list because they close. So 3,000 firms, just over 2,500 or so registrations, but less than 2,000 of those had accurate emails. And for 5 weeks now, we've been using that list and trying to update it. And I'm asking you can tell businesses, I'm asking your help. Make sure your information is current and accurate, and not just going to info@mybusiness.com. That might fill out the form, but that means you're missing out on vital information. We also included the program in the weekly, several times now. We've included the Tigard CARES program in the weekly e-newsletter that the city sends out, Cityscape. So we used it in social media, Twitter, Facebook, we used every communication medium that we have.
Lloyd, I just want to give you a little plug. My jaw almost hit the floor hearing that you are going through and locating emails for people, because one of the things I really appreciate about the City of Tigard is the equity work that you do. And the reality is that sometimes people aren't getting an email for a variety of different reasons. And equity is a piece in there. Chat with somebody about that later if you have a question about what I mean by that. But thank you for that. That is some incredibly hard work. So I just want to say that piece. Can you tell us?
Kudos to my colleague, Dylan DeKay Bemis. He got stuck with the first week out of the gate, starting to manage that list. So he's done that sometimes mind-numbing work of pulling up a website and seeing who we can find there to add to a list so that we could try to get information to you. So I'll pass that attaboy on to him. Thank you, Catherine.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell us how many applications you have received so far in total? Do you know?
Every time someone completes a referral form, which is on the city's webpage, I get an email. Last I checked, we were above 360 applicants. Some of those are duplicates. Sometimes people click twice. Sometimes we'll get an application from a business that's not in the city, but we screen for those. We try to weed out the duplicates. So I somewhere between 340 and 360 applicants. If somebody doesn't have a Tigard business license, we call them back or email them back and ask them to take care of that before we refer their application to either MISO or to Craft 3. So far, the intake has been about 360 requests for assistance, and then I've referred those requests, again, about 150 to MISO, just about the same amount to Craft 3. The rest are duplicates or they don't have a business license, so we're trying to get that squared away at the front end. And then again, MISO has had an intake process with some criteria. We can talk about that. Craft 3, who makes loans, has their constraints on how they can use their money. So not everybody that even fills out a referral form is going to get funding. We've seen that with the grant program. We are clearly oversubscribed. But that gives everybody a sense of the numbers that we're dealing with. And that's been for 3 weeks now. As soon as we open the grant program and open that referral page, we've been touching each of those applicants and getting it into the hands of the right partner. It's been time consuming. Every day we pull down a new list of whoever's applied, route it, sort it, review it. Okay, enough of that.
So Lloyd, next question. So one of the things that we've gotten questions about and that we've heard is businesses thinking that maybe they don't qualify for Tigard CARES, either because they're a franchisee or maybe they made too much in gross revenue or gross profits. So can you kind of talk to how that works with both the grants versus the loans?
Sure. Keep in mind that for the majority, I hope the large majority of businesses suffering right now, your best option is the federal programs, the EIDL, the EIDL program, or potentially payroll protection program. This program is really targeted at the firms that aren't going to be able to take advantage of those. We were very intentional about helping the most vulnerable businesses in our community. So for these small grants of $1,500, we were intentional about who would be eligible for that funding. $1,500 is really going to help a very small firm more than it's going to help a medium or mid-sized firm. So one of the recommendations from MISO that we agreed with was that if a firm generated more than $500,000 in sales last year, they wouldn't be eligible for this very small grant of $1,500. Similarly, corporate brands weren't eligible because corporate brands should have other support systems. Franchises, meaning franchisees, weren't eligible because traditionally, not in every case, but traditionally, a franchisee has access to support from their franchise. That doesn't happen in every case. We found instances where it's not true, but these were the rules we had we started with, that we've followed, again, because we're trying to get this very small grants of $1,500 into the hands of the firms that don't have access to commercial banks or a franchise network or corporate support. So, so you had to have a business license. You had to, for the small grants, you had to make less than $500,000 in 2018. I mean, those were the two. And then no corporate offices and no franchisees. Those were the tough. We really struggled with those. We thought and we debated. We had to make decisions because we knew we'd be oversubscribed. Again, over 350 applications, and we know we can help maybe 100 people with the small grants. The criteria for the bridge loans, the small business bridge loans, those are the loans through CRAFT 3. They're gearing up this week. Loan amounts of $10,000 to $50,000. Those criteria are a little different. That program is intended for larger firms that need $10,000 to $50,000 in very near-term operating cash. My hope is that money can get into the hands of businesses very soon, probably before even federal money shows up. So this might, in some cases, act like a bridge loan or get this money now, use it, and use the federal loan to pay yourself back. But in some cases, this funding will be for businesses that are underbanked and don't have access to a commercial lender or federal program. And we're not sure which businesses will be eligible or partake in the federal program. We rolled this program out before they announced their program. So their criteria will be more based on lending criteria. They're a generous lender. They can lend to businesses that a traditional bank normally would ignore, but they still have lending terms, and it's still a loan, absolutely. So their criteria are more technical, and I'm not a finance person. I'm not a banker, so I probably shouldn't get into that. But they will tell you as soon as you fill out the application, or part of their job is to let everybody know what their program will do, and businesses can decide. So that's my overview of the criteria.
Lloyd, what would you say to support people who maybe are chatting with their peers and they hear, oh, you're not going to be eligible because of this, that, and the other thing? And what if they really want to get to the source of a question that they have outside of this question and answer today? What is the best way to do that?
Well, the best thing to do is go to the website and fill out the referral form. And I route everybody. Up until yesterday, I was routing everybody to one of two partners, either MISO for a small grant or CRAFT 3. As I mentioned, I think by the end of the day today, we'll be oversubscribed on the grant. So I don't see I would encourage everybody that is still curious about a loan, at least for that $10,000 to $50,000 to fill out the application. I know that Dylan and I have been responding to 30 or more emails every week from businesses asking questions. We can handle some of these questions, but when we're answering questions, it means we're not rolling out the program. So I think the best thing to do is to fill out the form and then see what happens. There's no commitment from a business until you sign a loan or until you sign a grant agreement. So I wouldn't take somebody's word for it. I would go to the website and click on the referral form.
Lloyd, I know you're not a banker, but do you have any gut feel for what the interest rates ranges probably are between MISO and Craft 3?
I don't know off the top of my head. I have a term sheet from them.
Okay.
I think they have a little bit of, I think the interest rate is set on my recollection, but the other terms they have a little flexibility on, and it might be different depending on the amount of money. So I have that information. I just don't have it right here in front of me.
Okay, so that's something we can follow up with.
Lloyd, I'm curious if we have a question from a caller. Can you share with us how the City of Tigard is making sure small business in the Latino community is receiving the same level of information and resources available?
Yeah, that's a great question. As soon as we created the referral form, we also then converted it into Spanish because we have some Spanish speakers on staff. So we were able to take the intake form and make that in Spanish. The other benefit of working with, for instance, Micro Enterprise Solutions of Oregon, MISO, is that they have been in our community working with Latinx entrepreneurs. They were one of our partners at our Empresario de Tigard event, which was an event that connected Hispanic and Latinx entrepreneurs to all of the business advising and business support resources that we knew of. And so, again, one of the benefits of working with MISO is they have contact with Hispanic business owners in the community already. They started making phone calls as soon as we said, go, this program is live. They started reaching out to the businesses that they had heard from to make one-on-one phone calls. And they have Spanish speakers on their staff, like Charo, who does great work. So that was one of the key benefits of bringing in these CDFI partners, was not just that they could leverage our money and grow it, not just that they have business advising programs that they can help businesses with over the long haul, but they have relationships in the community that I don't have. So that was one of the biggest decisions we made to ensure that the programs were inclusive. MISO, Micro Enterprise Solutions of Oregon, works with all business owners. You can be of any nationality, any culture. They are inclusive. So it wasn't just even Latinx entrepreneurs. It was entrepreneurs from any cultural background, had a better chance of connecting into the program and learning about it because we partnered with them. Inclusivity was key.
Just a tiny follow-up to that. How does that decision making to partner with MISO or to include equity work as you're doing this work, how does that align with the goals for the city for economic development and prosperity? From your perspective?
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly why we're doing what we're doing. We certainly focus on, and many of you have heard me talk about traded sector manufacturing, and that certainly drives the Tigard, some part of the regional economy and some part of the Tigard economy. So I'd say we have a bifurcated approach. We have a focus on traded sector firms that are producing something here and selling it nationally. Think of Rogers Machinery, who's now producing the parts that go into the ventilators that are saving people's lives over on 72nd. We balance that out with a focus on locally owned businesses and entrepreneurs. And that covers a range of, we're inclusive with that. That covers a range of nationalities, a range of cultures. So we're trying to do both. This program in particular, Tigard CARES, was intentionally focused on traditionally underserved businesses, meaning those that are led by women who often don't get as good a deal at the bank, minorities who have the same challenge, sometimes veterans we include in that list. In this case, we didn't call veterans out explicitly, but I know MISO and Craft 3 work are comfortable and familiar working with women, entrepreneurs of color, and veterans. So this program, again, compared to a first come, first served program that was rolled out in some other cities, we have been more intentional, and that's because that's the type of economic development program we're trying to lead at the city. That's the type of prosperity for everyone that we're trying to achieve as best we can in Tigard. I know when I was talking to the council on Tuesday, I reminded them that everyone in Tigard deserves a chance. And this program is to make sure that the most vulnerable businesses have that chance. If you have access to SBA funding, you need to go there. If you have access to commercial lending accounts that are good enough terms to tide you over, you should be using that. We need to keep in mind there's businesses that don't have that, and this program was meant to fill that niche.
So Lloyd, related to that, one of the questions that we got from our audience is, if they've applied and they haven't heard anything back, what should their time frame of expectation be? And would they hear something back either yes or no, or would they only hear back if they were accepted?
So it's a pretty simple question for me to answer, but it's going to sound complex. With the small grants, those very small grants of $1,500, businesses knew right away if they weren't eligible. They got a note saying they weren't eligible. They didn't have a Tigard business license, or their revenue for the last year was over $500,000. I mean, instantly those firms knew they weren't eligible. That leaves a very small group of firms right now that we have not made an award commitment to for those very small grants. Again, we have 100 candidates right now. As of yesterday, 78 of them received an award notice. There's some that we need to make sure they have their business license, and some that we need to do a little more due diligence to make sure they're eligible. So there's only, for the small grant program, there's only, as far as I know, 10 or 12 firms that haven't received an answer either way. They will get one from me as we work through these details. For anybody that checked the box on their referral form saying they were interested in a loan program, they should hear. I've been told we will hear from Craft 3 starting yesterday, and until Craft 3 makes over 150 calls. Craft 3 will go down the call or email contact sheet we've given them, and their job is to touch base with every firm, but that's going to take a while. My intent is to also send out an email to every firm that indicated that a small business grant would support them or help them, and direct them to the Craft 3 intake form. We're working with Craft 3 right now on that. As everybody can tell, we moved first on these small grants to get this program up and running. The loan program takes a little more time at the startup phase. So we have a process. We're trying to make sure everybody that applies hears something.
Great, thank you.
I'm doing my best to do that with phone calls. We have a team making phone calls at the city level. I'll be following up with emails. And then, of course, both of our partners, MISO and Craft 3, will be reaching out.
Great. So I think that answered that question. Is there any possibility in your vision of this program that it could conceivably get added onto and grow beyond the 1 million that it's currently at?
I hope so. I have a couple of ideas. In fact, after this meeting, we'll pass a hat around, and any business that wants to make support. Right now, truth be told, everybody's strapped. If you're a business, I know you're strapped. If you're a city, I know you're strapped. If you're the Fed, well, you're printing money, but there's going to be a cost there too. We have a couple other sources I'm trying to approach. Basically, what we've stood up here is basically a revolving loan fund, and there are ways to use federal funds to capitalize that. Sometimes at a match, meaning we put in 20%. the Fed matches that through these federal assistance programs, these waves that have been coming through. Some of our federal partners, like the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, might be able to recapitalize some revolving loan funds. So I'm trying to position us in pursuit of that. Because we were innovative and partnered with some CDFIs, we might have a chance to go back to their funding sources. That was a key benefit in partnering with them, is that leverage is not just our front end dollar, but potentially dollars that show up later in this process. So I'm hoping we can build upon this. We'll see.
Excellent. We had a question from the audience really quick. We know that our commercial crimes unit is near and dear to us, certainly because they serve the business community and they're funded through business licenses. Hopefully I have that all correct. Is there any concern that money's been pulled, or this money is, this money for these grants and things are now being pulled from commercial crimes? Or are they still fully staffed and all that?
Good question. Council made sure that we weren't cannibalizing the budget of the commercial crimes unit. They get first dibs, their share of the collection of the business license revenue first. They get made whole. The money we were able to tap into was money that would have gone into the city's general fund to cover typical annual costs. So there will be some backfilling to do somehow. There's something that's not going to get funded because we've done this program, but it will not be the commercial crimes unit that's suffering. I hope it was the chief that asked that question. I'm just kidding.
So we've sort of answered this, so I'm going to reframe this. But there's a lot of programs out there. There's some SBA programs with an economic injury disaster loan called an EIDL or an EIDL. There's the Paycheck Protection Program, which its acronym is PPP. Facebook has some sort of business grant program going on. We have Tigard CARES. And so I think you did a pretty good job of explaining, like, when should you leverage Tigard CARES versus when should you go leverage, the SBA loans. It's really, Tigard CARES is looking at more of our underbanked, our potentially more disadvantaged businesses. So if you can leverage those government programs and take advantage of those, you're better off. And so I think that one of my points of view as well is the loan rates on the SBA economic injury disaster loan is 3.75%, which that's really cheap money.
Yeah.
So I seriously doubt they're going to find that necessarily with a Craft 3 or a MISO. I think in yours and my conversation, we were thinking those interest rates were probably higher than that. So I think that could help people with that decision-making process.
Yes, absolutely. I think as of the last date, as of the update, I think, Debbie, you and I received on that seminar, was it last Thursday? Oh my gosh, time is flying.
So, yeah.
The SBA EIDL funding, 3.75%. So if you can beat that on a line of credit, do it. But most people can't. Very generous terms on the federal funds. The micro loan funds, the bridge loan fund, so the micro loan funds from MISO or the bridge loan funds from Craft 3 won't be as low as that. Their cost of capital is about that. A little less, I think. So that's their cost to get money. They still have to then do something with it and have costs. So yeah, the most cost-effective funding source for any business in Tigard is going to be that SBA EIDL fund. Similarly, the payroll protection program funds, if you can get that through your commercial lender.
So Lloyd, who would you...
In the 20 years I've been doing this, I've never seen the Fed do a program that is that generous and that the application is so simple for the federal EIDL program. We almost made that a requirement of this program, is that we had to see you make an application there first. We didn't. but I sure hope any business in need that's hearing this message now goes to the federal programs first, and then those that can't or won't or don't have access to that can come to this Tigard CARES program.
And who would you, as businesses, like, you know, each business is individual and unique. It's structured differently. It's funded differently.
Yep.
It has different
Margins
business models and seasonalities and margins. So who would you recommend that business owners collaborate with and go to in terms of working on their decision-making process? Let's kind of put you on the spot there.
No, I
have my own set of answers, but
yeah. I actually, every business that calls and asks me that, I say, go talk to the team at the chamber. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding you there. You'd be overwhelmed. And I think, to your credit, you do have good counseling and advising, and you have access to some of the partners that we regularly refer to that have really stood up programs in the last 3 weeks. And that's the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center, is now doing online consults. I talked to Tammy Marquez Odom, the director of the Portland area SBDC 2 weeks ago. She assured me they've pivoted from traditional person-to-person meetings to online, digital. They have a very fast turnaround. If someone goes to their website to fill out a form saying, I've got a question, I need to know about these options, I need help. The SBDC is home to the Capital Access Team. These are 3 or 4 people, one of which is a Tigard resident who knows how to help a business navigate the access to financial capital questions. So they have capacity, and they have the technical skill set to help a business develop a near-term strategy that's spot on for them. I'm just a bureaucrat. I shouldn't be offering that advice, and I try not to. So that's my recommendation: is pick up a very much free SBDC online advising session, get your questions answered, and then move forward.
yeah, I think one of my other pieces of advice, we've been talking to member businesses, is to connect with their banker.
Yep.
You know, connect with their landlord if that's applicable, unless they own their own building. You know, ask for a mortgage deferral, those types of things, you know, ways to be spreading your costs out, deferring your costs. So I think between, you know, talking to those that you owe money to, as well as getting advising, I think puts together a pretty good package in terms of trying to navigate your way through this. And then I also think peer groups can be really handy. I know some of our downtown restaurateurs have been getting together once a week and bouncing ideas off of each other and finding value in that as well.
Yep. By the way, Debbie, were you able to share with membership the City Council's Tuesday action on commercial eviction moratorium?
I did not do that yet because the governor had already put in place the 90-day moratorium on commercial evictions.
It's a little bit different, but
Okay. All right.
You know, I'm just mentioning that because the Tigard CARES program isn't the only program we've been working on. It's been the majority of my time and Dylan's time, but we were working on that policy action. We worked on and are continuing to manage something that Chambers helps promote and spread the word on, which is a Shop Tigard program, where firms that are still open for business, especially restaurant, retail, those of you doing gift cards and takeout, we've got that program up and running. We're crowdsourcing that information, and you can get your business put on the map so that residents know where they can go to the map to see that you're open. Again, Chamber was a partner in rolling that out. So I'm just letting everybody know that, yes, this Tigard CARES program has been all-consuming for me, especially for the last 4 weeks. But there's other programs too.
Well, Lloyd, I know that we could probably keep you all day, and I know that an hour is an hour that you're not working on getting these out to people. I have a question for you that I'm hoping, you know, it's a little subjective, and maybe you can lean on your many, many, many years of experience as a government official. What would you say to business owners who feel like this is all very un-American? The idea that, you know, they've been shut down at the request of government, their customers are afraid at the request of government. Why can't you just give us the money that we've now lost because you asked us to be closed? And I say you as, you know, the general you. What would you say to that?
I think that's what the federal program is doing. The federal program is taking tax dollars and pumping it back into the economy. That's their mechanism for doing that is maybe imperfect. It's the SBA, but that's where the trillions of dollars are coming from. We're doing that as best we can locally, even though the mandate to shut down came from the governor. This Tigard CARES program is our best way to backfill that. I mean, so that's the mechanism question, I guess. I don't know how I would answer the un-American question. I think we're a country that looks out for each other, and when there's a risk of people dying, it's time to look out for each other. That's why we're quarantining. That's why we're isolating. That's why we are sequestering. That's why in the last 3 weeks, I've walked outside for 5 minutes a day and then gone back to work and only given myself a 5-minute break because this work needs to be done. And we can't be spreading germs. That simplifies it. I know I'm not a public health or a policy person.
I know that's not an easy question, but I appreciate
you got my rambling on it.
Well, thank you, Lloyd, so much for spending this hour with us. And thank you for all the work you're doing to stand up this program. And I definitely acknowledge that Tigard, as well as a lot of our other cities, are kind of stepping into the void to provide funding in response to a state mandate, because we really haven't seen funding come out of the state. State's not setting up a grant program. I know some counties are also trying to set up grant programs. So I actually really applaud both our cities and our counties that have done that in response to a state mandate to try to look out for their business communities. So with that, I think we've answered most of the questions that came in online, as well as the ones that we received in advance. So thank you very much. If you guys have follow-on questions that you think of after that, on the Tigard CARES page, which there was a link to in this invite, you can find both Dylan and Lloyd's contact information, so you can just shoot them an email inquiry. If that's too hard and you want to send it to us at the chamber, we'll make sure it gets to Lloyd and Dylan so that we can get your questions answered. So thank you, and I hope everybody has a good a day as possible.
Thanks, Lloyd.
Yeah, be healthy, everyone. And keep working as best you can.